Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is October 8th, so Thursday. We got one more day of the trading week. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about, of course, today's performance and some trades that my trades that I did today. A little bit of what I'm thinking ahead. And how I'm kind of positioning. And then I'm going to do something a little bit different in this video because, like I said, today I thought was a little bit nice day altogether. I'm not complaining about today. It was just a little bit quiet, especially in the afternoon. So we're going to talk about what we do at the Tribeca Trade Group. In case you're a new viewer to my videos, if you're already a member, you can maybe skip half this video because it's just going to be a little bit of description about what we do at the Tribeca Trade Group on a day-to-day basis. So this should be kind of fun, I hope. All right, so let's talk about the performance first for the day. It's kind of interesting. S&P was the leader intraday, right? Again, this should not be new to you if you have been watching my videos. I talk a lot about where the more or less the alpha is over time. It's in the overnight market, right? So SPY did finish up. I'll zoom in here a little bit. SPY did finish up about 1%, just a hair under 1% for the day. But again, the majority of the move happening in the overnight market. So again, if you're buying the close, selling the open, that trade works out over time, right? And over incremental time periods, there could be a different story in terms of performance, but over time, over a period of 20 years, buying the close and selling the open works very well. So again, another example of that. I try to point that out when a couple days a week. But overall, all the indices were up on the day, and the small caps were the leader. They just didn't move too much intraday. Again, 6 basis point move intraday made all the move in the overnight session. Bonds actually bounced a little bit today. We saw them up 0.5%. Gold and silver continue to kind of be non-factors for the time being. We review all these charts in the pre-market session, which starts at 9:05 every day. And I do go over gold and gold, silver. We do a quick macro review, but I just don't see a trade there right now. And then the VIX kind of melted down a little bit today. At the end of the day, finished right around 26. Performance, best performing sectors, the pot stocks. Am I not? There we go. The pot stocks, I think I was just a little bit too zoomed in here. We're up 4.3%. Maybe they got a little bit of a kick on the VP debate last night. Oil stocks were hot today. They were up 4.8%. I actually participated a little bit in this today. We saw a pretty decent buyer in the Exxon, right? So Exxon, not a stock I trade a lot, but I've just kind of I've been watching this price action in oil, and it just looked like these things were due for a little bit of a bounce. Again, I'm not going to stay married to, I traded a little. So what did I do? I traded a little bit of XLE today. Nothing crazy today, but I just thought that this might be due for a little bit of a bounce. I don't really know if it's going to be a sustained bounce. All these things are in major downtrends. You know me, I'm a trend trader, and I don't trade a lot of things that are in downtrends. But for a day trade, fine. And XLE did finish up 3.7%. So again, option activity giving us a little bit of a clue. Nice block. I'll show you the block of Exxon calls, if I can find it. There's also a little bit of Chevron. Whoops, wrong button. All right, so again, something a little bit different. And again, at this point, I think a lot of growth names have done pretty well this week. So it doesn't, that's why I traded this energy trade today, because it just wouldn't surprise me if some other groups kind of just lead a little bit, given the nice performance that we've seen in the beginning of the week in some growth areas that I think got pretty hot. But yeah, this was a $1.2 million trade that we saw in Exxon today. And that was the performance for the day, or the one of the leading areas that performed pretty well for the day. Let me rephrase that. Also, the home builders, right? We were talking about the home builders pre-market. I already own the XHB right? The home building ETF, which has a lot of retail in there too, besides the home builders. But this is a group that's remained pretty strong, even with earlier in the week. And again, like I said, bonds bounced a little bit, and that brings interest rates down a touch, right? So this kind of gave a little bit of a relief to the home builders that were just a little bit underperformers earlier in the week because rates did go higher. That's my opinion, at least on the underperformance of the home builders this week. But look at them come right back out to 52-week highs. And I was looking at Lennar. I did not pull the trigger on Lennar. It was one of those situations where I was long Lennar and I took it off. I think on the 5th. Right, but I've still watched trades. Right, I still like to get back into trades that I think are strong companies on dips. And I was looking at this morning, and the 1 hour value area I thought looked pretty interesting to me, right? But it just I just wasn't sure if we were going to go down a little bit further or not. And this was a real nice trade, and I considered chasing a little bit. I did not, but that's okay. I still have exposure to I just kind of stayed in XHB, and I did take a target in that today. But yeah, that's kind of the story with the sectors for the day. REITs, also utilities. I think utilities have been up now 7 days in a row. This was also a chart that we talked about earlier in the week. Maybe there are some market participants that are going into the safety of utilities, going into the election. So yeah, I think that's 7 days in a row. REITs also saw a decent ETF inflow earlier in the week. They're not. You could see the volume down here, right? It appears that there is some accumulation, and like I said, there's a decent inflow earlier in the week, which is on my Twitter feed, I believe. But yeah, utilities have been strong, right? So again, a little bit under the radar names. I've talked about a couple consumer staple names too. I think this PG looks decent move out of consolidation, right? So that's one of the names that we've been talking about. Here's my trades really. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, there's always things to talk about. But the solar, the clean energy, finally saw a little bit of not a little bit, but they did see a reversal day. They started up on the day and they finished, for the day, not that bad. The solar ETF finished flat, but they did, they were up about 2% to start the day, and you could see the solar ETF sold out throughout the session, down 3.2%. Again, probably. You would think at this point they were due for a little bit of a correction back. Software was also weak a little bit today, and not after putting in basically a pretty strong week, I would say for overall software. And again, this chart looks great too to me. Even though it kind of came back a little bit, but looks perfectly normal to me. Just to talk about a few other sectors, the semiconductors are right back at 52-week highs, right? IYT, transports, right? So a lot of participation, right? And something that we've been talking about now for a few days, which has been strong market breadth, right? The wind has been kind of at our back in terms of stocks advancing. You can see on the bottom left of my screen, this breadth indicator has been just confirming what we're seeing in equities. Just a lot of participation, broad participation, strong breadth. Here's the other screen that I like to show in terms of market breadth. And you can see, look at all the advancers versus decliners. I mean, it's pretty tremendous. Also, the 4-week new highs. I mean, that is some decent broad participation there. And then, of course, 52-week highs. So, the indices are strong underneath the hood. All right. So, again, confirming, right? We're always looking for either confirming or diverging indicators. Right now, this is confirming the price action. That's a good thing. Remember what we saw again back in September in the first couple of weeks whenever we would get a green day, like a bounce, we were seeing a divergence. We were seeing poor breadth on those bounces. It's different now. So for now, we don't know how long it's going to last, but for now, we've got really nice participation. My trades for the day, again, I always full transparency. I took this little CNR trade off today that we saw yesterday. building. I think it was building material name. So that works pretty well. So again, taking a lot of names, you know, taking a lot of not a lot of risk off. But my goal coming into today into strength was I said this earlier in the room. I don't know if I have it. Yeah, so my game plan for the afternoon is to try to increase my cash balance after a nice run the last week for equities, and as I said, I trimmed some positions. I did get that done today, and now I'm lean and mean and ready for the next dip. Even though the market breadth is strong, again, it doesn't mean I'm unwinding all my positions, right? I never go 100% into cash. I just don't, because again, the market does go up over time, so I don't want to try to market time 100%, right? So, I just kind of slim down my positions and have ample room in case we do get a market dip, so that I could counter pretty quickly if I see that it's a good opportunity, right? So again, real nice gains over the last couple weeks for my portfolio. My P&L for the year is basically I'm back in my trading account back at 52-week highs in terms of P&L. So that's a place after where I'm feeling pretty good, where I want to take more profits, and just as I said, be ready for the next whatever stupid headline we get that sells the market off a little bit. All right, so again, here's my trades. You can kind of look through them. Again, I did add a couple things today. Pins is something I've been stocking. We talked about that one in the Q&A session yesterday. This big lots trade that I put on yesterday started to work. So I'm not going to go over all these charts because, like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do on a day-to-day basis. But again, you could see all my trades, full transparency, and like I said, a couple things. When I do want to move a little bit more into cash, kind of just increase that cash balance, I tend to just force some exits in some things, and again, I have some exposure. Like we talked about a run into earnings trade for Netflix. This was a trade that worked for me yesterday in terms of a day trade, and I added on the dip a little bit, and now I've got a nice a nice little trade in place if Netflix wants to run. Don't forget, these names are going to be reporting earnings, and we're going to be doing more, or I'm going to be looking at more trades that could possibly run into their earnings report. So, for me, my opinion is that the opportunity a lot of times is just that, for a move into earnings. Some of these names, they have a tendency. Strong names have a tendency to run into their quarter, and then the move, if they come out with strong earnings, is already somewhat priced in, right? I think that younger traders, they think that there's a lot to do on an earnings report or on an earnings day. In my experience, it's kind of the opposite. The strong names will go ahead and run, and then they'll leave unless they have an absolute blowout quarter, much higher than expectations. Then they will rally, of course, after they report. But I think a lot of strong names, they're going to make that run before they actually come out with the numbers. So that's trading for us, where we're going to pre-position a little bit into some names, and we'll talk about that in the member weekend videos. All right, so let me talk about a little bit about, obviously, what we do. If I didn't go over the risk disclaimer, here it is in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. That's me, of course, and my background. I won't go through that, but just in case you're not familiar with who I am and what we do. But so basically what I've been doing for the last year and a half, I've been running two portfolios. So I kind of added this TTG portfolio, which I'll talk about in a minute. I added that around a year ago. So it was a year ago where I put together this portfolio, and that's been doing pretty well. And then recently, what I've done is add this weekly watchlist program that we've got cooking as well. So And I'll give you the history of why we started that program, but I like it. It gets me really enthused every week. But let's start with what obviously the bread and butter of what I do is my trading account, which I mentioned is I'm up now over 250% year to date. So I'm very pleased at that performance. I talked about last time I talked about Pinot was after at the end of September, right? I gave a video on that in my year-to-date performance, and I talked about September, which was basically a flat month for me. Outperformed the indices, but didn't have a huge month to the upside. Try to play a little bit of defense in September, but so far October has been pretty good to me in terms of trading wise. So what am I doing in my trading account? Sometimes I get questions about this, especially from people who are inquiring about the trading room and so forth. And what I'm basically doing is I do a lot of homework when the market is closed. And then during the day, I'm looking for trade setups. I'm kind of doing a top-down approach, looking at where I think the best sectors are, growth versus value, looking what I like to refer to as above the hood price and trend, and underneath the hood at market internals. And then during the day, we're kind of picking up on some of the things that move the market a little bit. Aggressive option activity, and I'm looking for trades and also incorporating basically the homework that I do while the market is closed with what we're seeing on the tape that day in terms of option activity. Option activity, we see a ton of trades, every day, and what I basically do is I filter them into my system, right? And that will tell me whether or not I want to take a shot at a trade or not, right? If it lines up in my system, if it looks good, and I've got a whole technical system that I use, then a lot of times I will pull the trigger and take a trade. If we see some really great option activity, but it doesn't fit right in my system, I don't take the trade. I pass and I take the next one. All right, so it's really in my trading account, I'm trading both options and stock. I've found a happy little mix that works for me. Everybody is different and has a different personality, but for me and for what I'm doing in terms of managing the trading room, I currently trade about 80% stock and 20% options. Right, 20% options, to leverage names, to play some short-term moves via like call spreads, put spreads. Try to sell some premium here and there, and my distribution of what I'm doing in terms of trading wise is 75% swing, 25% day trade, which fluctuates a bit based on market volatility and where I see the opportunities. But that's generally what I'm doing. My bread and butter is swing trading, but I will capitalize where I see some good day trading opportunities. All right, but yeah, that mix of stock and options, which I can go into in a later video, really kind of has worked pretty well for me this year, right? Using some options for leverage, but options, people don't talk about options too much, but options are very risky, right? It's not easy having a lot of option positions. If you get caught on the wrong side of the market, if you don't get a fast aggressive move, it can hurt you. Whereas if you don't get a big move, let's say in either direction, and you're holding stock, it's not a big deal, right? A flat market, you could get hurt in options. A flat market, you're not going to get hurt that much, and you're not going to get hurt in stock. So anyway, I'll get away from that, but that's my trading account. That's the majority of where I spend my time on. This TTG Portfolio, this is a stock-only account, so this is more for I don't want to say buy and hold because that's not what it is. I don't want to say long term because that's not what it is either, but it's a trend trading discipline. So I'm holding about 25 names, and what I do is I rebalance the portfolio every couple of weeks, and I kick out the weak names and I bring in some new ideas. And so I do a rebalance, maybe like 3 or 4 names. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 name, and I do that every couple of weeks. I haven't done a rebalance in about 2.5 weeks, so I'm probably due to do one either tomorrow or next week. But it's a nice way to have exposure to the market where you're not trading in and out of the market, right? You're not necessarily market timing. You're just following a trend, right? And I do manage those names individually, so there's stops on those names. So if a name hits a stop, I will kind of force a rebalance, and either kick that name out. And then at the same time, if a name like right now, like I've owned the solar ETF. I do want to take a target in that. That's why I kind of want to do a rebalance. I've owned the solar ETF TAN for a long time, but you know that this thing is looking like a hockey stick at this point. So I do go ahead in there and make sure that I'm hitting targets with some trades. So that's the second dimension of what we're doing, and then third is what's called the weekly Watchlist Program. So this is something new. So again, every week, every Sunday, basically, I send out members a watch list, and that is based on where I'm finding technical setups. So you could see for this week, we're really outperforming quite nicely. This is a list of 23 names. So what I do is I talk about the setups over the weekend in each individual name. So you can use a couple of these to swing trade. What I'm also doing is I'm purchasing this whole portfolio on Monday morning. I'm doing that in an account called M1 Finance. So it's like a portfolio trading type system. And I'm going in and I'm purchasing them, and then I'm holding them for the week, right? One of my colleagues gave me this idea. He told me kind of after the fact, he's like, I'm buying all your watch list names every week, and it's doing quite well. And we've had a discussion about it, and I said, hey, I might as well start doing that too, because I'm noticing that I'm observing good outperformance every week versus the indices. So I'm doing that. I compile a list. I'm basically buying on the open, and then what I do is I unwind the trade on Friday, right? And I do keep exposure over the weekend. How do I do that? So I unwind the individual names, and I go long SPY, and this portfolio trading system allows me to do that. And then I hold SPY over the weekend, which has been important the last few weeks because we are seeing these gap up Mondays, and then I unwind the SPY on the open, and I trade into the watch list for the week. So I can, of course, do some things like I actually wouldn't have minded taking this off today, considering it's up this much. But I'm holding it till tomorrow, and we'll unwind it. But yeah, I kind of feel like maybe I should have unwound that today, and there's nothing wrong with doing that a day ahead of the weekend, and then substituting in that SPY for Friday. But those are the little adjustments that we can make. So so if you're thinking about being a member of Tribeca Trade Group, that's what we're doing. We kind of have, I really have gotten to a nice comfort level of doing this type of trading, because it fits really nicely too with what a lot of members, some members are only doing things part-time. We also have a lot of full-time traders, who are doing a little bit of long-term investing and doing a lot of, shorter-term trading, swing trading, and so forth. So this fits really nice, I think, in terms of what we've been doing this year, and I think the performance speaks for itself. And if you're interested in being a member of Tribeca Trade Group, where do you go? So you go to my Twitter page, and you click on this link, and you can get involved. It might be something that we decide to kind of raise the price going into next year, but right now it's $149 a month, and that will stay. If you sign up for $149, I won't hike the rate up on you, but come the beginning of next year, we'll probably increase this incrementally. All right, guys. So that's it for today's video. So again, I like to kind of just review this every couple of months of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, and kind of the breadth of also what I'm doing on a daily basis and on a weekly basis. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.